I want to talk about today. Basically, I want to talk about Riot Games and Activision Blizzard. But mainly for the purposes of what I'm going to talk about, it's gonna be Blizzard. But the main thing I want to say is that well, I don't even know if I'm going to say it. I'm not going to address the fact that they both assault women. That's bad and terrible and shouldn't happen. But that's not right. Like when I talk about how I think Riot did what Blizzard never could, it's not just not assaulting women after a point, right? Because it's not just that, guys. But I want to talk about how I think. So okay, so let me take it back. So what really prompted this is what Riot I think has been doing to grow League of Legends outside of just it being the one game, right? Outside of just being League of Legends, right? So Riot has League, and then they have Valorant now, but like even outside of that, like League now with Arcane and a bunch of these other League games that they're releasing, they're turning League into something more than just the game League of Legends, right? And so I want to talk about how Blizzard absolutely had the opportunity to do that with WoW, and if you think they didn't, you're just wrong, but they didn't take it, right? So let's talk about this. So I have some stuff pulled up about like numbers. So at its prime, WoW had 12 million subscribers, right? And I know what you're thinking, like, wow, that's I mean that is a lot, but it might not look like as much as it is in terms of how many people are playing. When you forget how many people like played games back then, right? Like 12 million players was a much larger holy shit percentage of the market share for like online gaming, right, in 2010 than it would be now. Right. And so they had WoW was like the biggest game in the world for a while, right? Especially like the earlier in the 2000s. WoW was like the biggest like online game or even just game in the world, right? For a long time. It was just huge, right? Everyone knew about it. Everyone was talking about it. Not everyone was playing it because, there were things like not everyone had a computer. Not everyone could pay their subscription, things like that. But it was huge game. Millions of people playing, whatever, right? And that's kind of where I want to start, right? Is WoW had all these players, and WoW comes from Warcraft, right? So Warcraft was another series, and they built WoW after Warcraft, and so that was the whole thing. And so WoW very easily could have been a franchise. And I mean, I want to show you guys. These were with the trailers. These were in 2010. So this was at the point where they had 11 million players or 12 million or whatever. Like they were peaking, right? WoW was at its peak in terms of player base, right? And they had like trailers like this for their expansions, right? Hold on. And Blizzard has always, if you didn't know, had really good cinematic trailers. But just like, look at this, right? Like, it's fucking insane how good it is. And I think that like the problem is they have these really cool, trailers, and like this could have been like they could have turned this into a show, into something, right? Because they had this animation team at Blizzard that was making all these fucking, or maybe they had an outside studio do it, but whatever, right? Like, look at how fucking cool this is. Like, this is 2010. All right, if this was a trailer for a game coming out tomorrow, I'd be like, this looks fucking sick. So imagine in 2010, right, where the graphics were like fucking, like Call of Duty Black Ops, right, or like Arkham Asylum, and this shit was, I mean, obviously this one isn't what the game looks like, right, but trailers like this were popping up. Shit was hype as fuck.
Its wretched kingdoms quake beneath my rage.
Like, look at how fucking cool this is, right? I'm fucking into it. I want to play this game. Like, this looks actually sick as fuck, right? And here's the thing with WoW that actually would have made it easier to do this with than with Riot, right? So yes, Riot has its lore, or League has its lore, and League has, characters have backstories and things like that Riot's now expanding on. But when you play League, the story doesn't fucking matter, right? League of Legends is a 5v5 competitive online game. Right? So you hop into a League game, sure, characters will say things, but it literally does not matter what the lore is. For 100% of League of Legends games, the lore does not affect it at all, right? But when you're playing WoW, right, you're doing story quests, and you're meeting characters, and you're You're hearing them talk, and you're hearing them tell you about the world, and you're learning about the world, because League takes place on Summoner's Rift. Every League game, the exact same fucking map, right? This doesn't tell me anything about the world of Runeterra. I don't know what this is. This is just a map. Right? Like, this tells me nothing about League, right? But when you're literally in World of Warcraft and you're going through, I don't even know what the fucking world is. Is it something? It starts with like an A, right? But you're going through the WoW map. You're going to locations, right? And you're in these cities, and you're talking to characters, and you're seeing the world change, expansion to expansion, and you're fighting the Lich King, and you're doing all these fucking things that like have a story, right? So it was so much easier for Blizzard, right, to be able to turn WoW into something bigger, right? They and I'm not even saying they had to do it in one way or another way, but they were at the precipice of being able to do something with WoW to get people interested and to turn WoW into something that is larger than just the game World of Warcraft, right? And they didn't do it. And I think that when I say like it could have turned into something larger than the game that is World of Warcraft, what I mean is there are a lot of people who are watching and talking about Arcane, have zero interest in League of Legends, have zero interest in ever playing the game, right? And the reason that I bring up this Cataclysm trailer, right, is because this came out in 2010. WoW released in, I think, 2003. I'm going to look this up. WoW released in 2004. Okay. So this was 6 years into WoW, but this was when WoW was peaking, right? So 6 years into League was Season 6, which was pretty close, actually. It was 2 years later, but 2 years after League 6 years, they released... So, okay, wait, hold on. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm sorry. So I think WoW had the chance, and they dropped the ball. So let's talk about the biggest thing that WoW did outside of like the actual like game, right? And it was the Warcraft movie, right? So if you don't remember, in 2016, right? So if we go back to this article, right? They decreased from 2010 at 12 million players to 1.8 at 2018, right? So if we look at 2016, they'd already dropped over half their player base by the time they launched this fucking movie. Okay? Not to mention the movie was fucking terrible, but I don't think that matters as much. They waited so long. You're telling me they were putting out trailers like this and trailers like the fucking Lich King trailer? Like, they had shit like this. Okay? Like, this is fucking hype as shit. I love this. Like, look at this. This is fucking awesome. Is that a fucking... Is that Valhazak? Like, it's fucking awesome, right? A fucking skeleton dragon. Look at that. That's so sick, right? So Blizzard was doing cool shit 6 years before this fucking Warcraft movie came out. And then what did they fucking do? We're gonna make a dog shit movie that nobody fucking likes because it's actually terrible. And this is what they did. 5 years later, 6 years later, it's like they dropped the ball so hard with what they had and what they were pushing towards, right? They fucking butchered it, you know? And is this fucking, hold on. This isn't real, is it? Oh, never mind. It's a fake thing. Sorry. Okay. You know, dog shit movie, and that's like the biggest thing they did. And okay, yes, the Warcraft movie did make a lot of money, but it made a lot of money because of a country that I think is actually very important to this conversation that we will talk about in a second. All right. But we're not there yet in the grand scheme of this narrative I'm trying to weave. So I think Blizzard massively dropped the ball. They waited too long. By 2016, they'd already dropped half their player base. And if I look, right, because this is when League was gaining traction, and you could argue, and this would be wrong, that League had... Okay, so in 2010, like 2009, 2010, like because of the beta and stuff, League came out. League of Legends came out. League got very popular, especially in America, and I think you could argue as to when that popularity really peaked. And I think it depends on what group you're talking about with, right? So I think with very hardcore gamers, currently League has a very bad reputation that I think is very undeserved and comes from the reason that a lot of people make fun of a lot of competitive games, which basically surmounts to I'm bad at the game, but I don't want to admit that I'm bad, so the game must be bad. I think this happens with a lot of games, right? I think it's the same reason people don't, some people will complain about fighting games. It's the same reason that people will complain about, shooters that are very, like, skill-based, right? Like something like Valorant or something like, CSGO. I think people don't like to admit their own shortcomings and try to actually work to better themselves, or just admit the fact that they're dog shit at something that they're putting a lot of time into. And so anytime they lose, it has to be the game's fault. They always blame the game, and it just leads to the cycle of constantly saying the game's bad. And then also I think that the League fans do the really cringe thing of saying, oh, I hate League, but I play it anyways. It's like, no, like, you enjoy the game. That's why you play it. It's fucking fun. Grow up, right? Learn to, it's like this vicious cycle where people who played the game and then quit say it's bad, and people who play the game say it's bad, which causes people who quit the game to say, well, it's still bad, so I'm not going to play. So then people who play the game, they're like, well, everyone else says it's bad, it must be bad, but I play it anyways, I guess I'm broken, right? It's like this vicious cycle where people just constantly say the game's bad. But that's only in America. It's only in the West, really, and I'll get to that in a second as well. But so, you could argue that League probably peaked in terms of, like, its popularity among hardcore gamers in terms of being, like, respected around, like, Season 3, Season 4, Season 5. Then 2016, 2017, 2018 is probably when it was actually peaking player base-wise in the West. It has declined on the North American server. But that's only, like, a tenth of the story. Because there's 2 countries for League of Legends, and one of these countries is very important for World of Warcraft as well, that are very massive for why League has 100 million active monthly players, which I actually totally believe, by the way. And there's 2 countries are South Korea and they're China, right? And in these, and it's interesting because Blizzard has had a chance with both of these, right? Obviously, StarCraft in South Korea was very big, also Blizzard made. But I do think that StarCraft probably wasn't as big worldwide, so it's a little bit harder to say that they should have turned StarCraft into other things, even though I think that what I'm saying to WoW applies to every Blizzard franchise. They absolutely should have done it with Overwatch, and they fumbled the ball on Overwatch probably harder than WoW, if we're being completely fucking honest. The way that they fucked up Overwatch is insane, but that's actually a story for a different time, because if I talk about Overwatch, that deserves its own separate thing. But I like the comparison between WoW and League more. And so, whatever. And then in China, League is huge. World of Warcraft was huge, right? There were the Chinese gold farmers, and then in WoW, and now, right, like, League is huge in China, right? Huge player base, things like that. So, right, now we can talk about League. So, League had, a lot of players, and it would do a bunch of small events from time to time, right? And I'm not going to talk about anything esports related in this. But they had, like the Pentakill stuff where there was a band made up of characters in game, and they released like a metal album. And they had small things. But I would say the first major event that wasn't just like a cinematic video or something like that, that like kind of caught people's eye outside of League, was the KDA video. So if you don't know what this is, it's essentially it's a K-pop group. This is like these. I'm pretty sure these are a lot of these are actual K-pop, or some of them are actual K-pop artists. But essentially, they made a K-pop music video using League of Legends characters that they tied into skins in the game and made it a whole in-game event, right? Which is something they do a lot. But I think this was the first event. They do events all the time, but I think this was the first event that really caught people's eye, right? And I'm not gonna lie about why. The reason is because a lot of these girls are super hot, right? Akali's giga hot, Kai'Sa's really hot, Ari's hot. Like, it's hot girls, it's a K-pop music video, so it attracted K-pop people who maybe didn't know or care about League, right? You have, League fans like it. People who just like hot fucking, like, weebs who just like hot girls like it, right? So, huge, right? 481 million views on this video, all right? Insane, right? And I think this was their first big thing where it really did kind of attract people, outside of attracting people to come play the game, because this was 2018. So at this point, League already had a very negative reputation. And I think that this was the first thing that really attracted people to come into League and, maybe think about it and stuff, right? So this was their first big one, right? That I think really, like, attracted people to the game. and not the game is in to play League of Legends, but attracted people to League as more than just the video game, right? There's more here to KDA. You know, there's so much KDA art, like fan art and stuff that exists. And a lot of it is from people who probably have never even played the game. And the reason I say that is because it's people who never do League fan art, never talk about League, will draw KDA Akali, right? Blowing a dude or something, you know? And so, you know, KDA was huge, right? And I think that's the first big one, right? And there's some other smaller things, but we obviously now have to talk about the big thing, right? Like the big League of Legends thing that's happened that I think really, along with other things, and to be fair, it's not just this one thing, because Riot have very clearly been planning it, right? Years ago, right, they announced that they were making an RPG, right? They announced they were making a side-scrolling Echo game. They announced they were making Ruined King and a fighting game, right? So they announced all these games a long time ago that take place in the League of Legends world. And there also was Wild Rift, the mobile version of League came out in 2020, and the card game also came out in 2020, Legends of Runeterra, right? So they've been slowly trickling out a bunch of different things that take place in the League of Legends lore that are other games that aren't just League, right? But I would say, obviously, Wild Rift was mainly only people who play League or already play like MOBAs on their phones are going to get it, right? Because it's a fucking MOBA game. And then Legends of Runeterra might attract some card game likers, like maybe some people from Hearthstone switch over, maybe some people from Magic switch over, but it's also mainly there for League players as well, right? Kit, I hope you're like fucking memeing, dude. The biggest thing, though, the thing that they used as kind of the vehicle to blow the whole fucking roof off this fucking operation that they've been pulling, right? And they structured all these things around this thing coming out because they were smart, right? They had multiple things. Like, imagine if, even if the Warcraft movie was dog shit, right? If Blizzard had said, oh, we also have a WoW, like, fucking single-player RPG that's like Skyrim, right? Because this was, like, 2016, right? So even in 2016, if you have a WoW RPG that's like Skyrim, people would have fucking gone nuts for it, right? Skyrim was only on, like, its third re-release at the time, so people were still fucking hypey for it. You know what I mean? But League is like, we're gonna blow the whole roof off this thing, and we're gonna fucking launch Arcane. We're gonna release our fucking Netflix show that we've been working on. That, yeah, like, okay, you know, the Warcraft movie's dog shit. Arcane's fucking great, right? Like, I watched the show when it came out. Visually blows almost any other animated show I've ever seen out of the water. You know, it's really good. Like the story's super fucking sick. I loved it the whole time, right? Like, I was super into Arcane. Super fucking good. And it's huge. It was like number one on Netflix for a while. Super big, right? So if we go, you know, Arcane, right? Here's an article. 130 million views. Netflix's most watched series within 3 days, right? Arcane has absolutely been watched by more people than have played League of Legends, right? So even if we were to be generous, right, and say 130 million views, okay, let's say that every single person who actively plays League has a Netflix account, watched Arcane. There's still 20 million people. That's fucking ridiculous. Do you know how many fucking people that play League of Legends live in their parents' basement, make $5 fucking dollars a year, right? They can't pay for Netflix. They didn't watch Arcane on Netflix, right? Arcane absolutely reached a much wider audience than League of Legends did, right? And there's a lot of people who probably watched Arcane, don't give a fuck about playing League of Legends, right? Partially because they bought into this fucking grand meme conspiracy of League bad because people are dog shit at the game and just complain, right? But that's besides the point. So Arcane reached so many fucking people. Huge. And what did they do while there was all this buzz for Arcane? They released 2 of their Riot Forge games, 2 of their League, whatever you want to call it, games, right? They released Ruined King, which is a like a RPG. I haven't played it yet, but it's like an RPG taking place in the League world with characters. You know, so they released this. They also released the Ziggs game, Hextech Mayhem, which is just like a fun little like rhythm scrolling game. It's kind of dog shit, but it doesn't matter, right? Because they released these 2 games. They also had a huge event, they had like essentially like a little Nintendo Direct thing where they talked about the games they had coming up, the other Riot Forge games, right? So one of the big ones that a lot of people have talked about is, and what they did in this trailer, by the way, is so smart. They used one of the scenes that everyone loves in Arcane to immediately show off the fighting game, right? So the reason that they do this and don't show a League of Legends footage or something is because they know that there are going to be a lot of people who watched Arcane that didn't play League, right? So they used footage from Arcane, not footage from League, right? And then they show the game, right? And so there's a fighting game, right? And a lot of people in the fighting game community are super excited about Project L. They think it looks really sick. They're really excited for it. They think it could be like a really sick, really fun game, right? They also announced, or they showed more about a bunch of their other games, right? So they showed more about Convergence, which is the Echo, the side-scrolling game, right? Which this is probably the League of Legends game I'm the most excited for because I love Echo, and I think, you know, side-scrolling action games are really fun. They showed, some of a game where it's like a 3D adventure game, you know, with another character. So they did all of this at the same time, and the reason that they did all of this at once is intentional, right? Because they know what they're doing, and so they release Arcane, and while there's a lot of buzz from Arcane, then they talk about these other games to get people excited for them. And I think that it's pretty inarguable that now they've successfully kind of done it, where League is much more, like the idea of, like, League of Legends is going to grow beyond just what the video game, the 5v5 MOBA League of Legends is, where it's going to become a franchise where there's a bunch of different games. And, you know, it's going to be a lot bigger, right? It's going to be more about, I am almost positive at some point they'll change it from being like a League of Legends thing to like a Runeterra thing, right? And so Runeterra will become the name of the franchise because that's the name of the world that League inhabits, right? And that'll be what they do, right? And that was something that Blizzard never did with WoW or with Overwatch or with StarCraft. And I think it is inarguable that they had that opportunity to make that happen and did not do it, right? They just didn't expand it enough when they had the chance. And then they fucked up their game, and now they've lost so many players to fucking Final Fantasy and New World and whatever fucking other MOBAs exist, right? Where, you know, Riot have done what they couldn't, essentially. And I think the most interesting thing that's going to happen from now is people are going to have to fucking get over the fact that they just assume League is bad and that everything related to League is bad. As a bunch of new things that I'm sure, even they're not all going to be good, I'm sure a lot of them are going to be pretty fucking banger. So, yeah, that was kind of what I wanted to talk about for that. That's really all I have to say about it, but I think it's really interesting that Riot, that Blizzard had this opportunity to do something. They didn't do it, but Riot did it a lot better, and they successfully were able to grab all these markets and grow much larger than just the game itself.